Hello guys, welcome back to my channel. As you can see in the picture today, let's start the story of what if Issei had a sister who held her final pace of God's sacred gear. It was April, the start of Kizara Hayata's second year at Ko High School. She had just tied her hakama when the whole kendo club heard a crash outside the exterior wall of the locker room. Immediately Kate shrieked, "Those damn perverts!" While quickly tying her own hakama, Murayama, who was also rushing to dress, followed up with, "Captain, do something about your brother and his friends already." Though embarrassed, she could only sigh and say, "Let's just get their punishment over with already." As they were leaving, they already knew how things would turn out in the end. After all, Kizara knew the two girls with her, and the two boys they were hunting since they were all first-year middle schoolers. As for the final boy, well, he was her brother, much to her dismay. One of her vice-captains, Murayama, a brunette with twin tails and a large bust, was going to head toward the school track and head off the jock of the group, Matsuda. He was a talented athlete, had a shaved head, and used to be a member of the track and field team before high school. He was, in fact, the star of their team in middle school and even made nationals in their third year. So she knew once he got into an open area like the track, he was impossible to catch. However, despite all that, Kizara knew he wasn't able to escape Mura after all. She was the fastest of the kendo team and was always able to position herself to counter her opponents. Murayama knew that Matsuda was heading for the track. The other vice-captain was Kate's. She had pink hair that was cut shoulder length and kept her bangs pulled back with a hairband. Her objective was simply to go to the south building and wait for her prey. She was the team's power player. While it's true that she had a slimmer figure than both Kizara and Murayama, she had bigger hips and legs. Therefore, she could insert much of the power kendo is known for. However, unfortunately for Motohama, she was the most aggressive and unforgiving of the team and was merciless in beating him. Motohama is an idiot in all regards. Every time he ran away, he would take pointless random routes to throw off pursuers, making it so none of the girls who spotted him could even catch him. However, he always ended up going to the photography club, which he is a founding member of, just to take photos of girls. So all one had to do was wait on him near there, and he was caught. His stupidity was so absurd that the fact that he held one of the highest IQs she knew was mind-blowing. When she heard that he had the highest GPA in middle school, she thought he had to be cheating, and so did the school. So they tested him, and he scored nearly 300. As for Kizara herself, she was heading to the old school dorms in pursuit of the most troubling of the trio, her elder brother Issei Hayata. As she walked, she questioned if he was really her elder brother, but from her appearance, there was little doubt. I guess if one said Issei takes after their dad, Kizara took equally after their mom. She had the same brown hair and blunt bangs, and like her mom, she preferred to keep it tied low. This kept it out of the way while she was practicing kendo, but it didn't make her look like some untidy tomboy who didn't care how others saw her. Her figure was also well balanced, with her hips and bust being in the middle ground between her two friends, which suited her since she preferred to perfect her technique over speed or power as they do. However, this also created a problem. Due to her years of practice and training, she was the best on the kendo team. But because she had so often used this talent to punish her brother, he had become a monster in his own right. He was not as fit or athletic as Matsuda nor as intelligent as Motohama. In fact, he could be said to be average in physical ability and a C+ student to boot, but his ability to avoid danger was second to none, thanks to his years of being her dummy in kendo. So now it's to a point where only she can land a hit. Finally, in position, she stepped onto the dirt trail to the old dorm, heading off her target. As Issei came to a halt, she yelled at him, "Why can't you be normal, you stupid Aniki?" Flashback. Going back in time to when they were first caught, outside the kendo club building, Issei was trapped under his buddies Matsuda and Motohama after a failed attempt to climb up and peep as the kendo team via a window that resulted in them crashing down. Scrambling to his feet, Matsuda shouted, "Yo guys, we got to split," as he sprinted off. Issei cursed the jock's talent in sports but was still amused that he knew it was in vain. Meanwhile, Motohama was in such a hurry that he humorously started his takeoff on all fours before pulling himself to his feet and rounding the corner of the building to create a random labyrinth for the girls to follow. Not wanting to be the asshat left with all the blame, Issei started his sprint in the opposite direction as the other two of the infamous perverted trio. He cut through the tennis court and past the pool to turn down the old trail to the old abandoned dormitory, where the trio liked to meet. I'm going to get there first, Issei thought with a grin, knowing he was going to win their usual bet. Unfortunately, fate had other ideas. Cutting him off on the path ahead was the kendo club captain, his little sister Kizara Hayadu. However, despite being his younger sister, she was in the same school year as him. Many times they were asked if they were twins, but they weren't. Issei and Kizara were, in fact, only 10.5 months apart. Issei was born in late April at the start of the school season, and Kizara was born in early March at the end. Knowing what was happening next, Isaac came to a screeching halt. The girl in front of him stood there momentarily holding her shurnai before saying, "Why can't you be normal, you stupid Aniki?" Charging at her classmate and elder brother, Issei froze momentarily while stuttering, Wait, Kizara, what are you doing, putting an end to my stupid brother's lecherous ways?" Kizara retorted as she swung the shurnai at his head. Knowing her moves well, Issei took a rear right step retreat, circling to her left. So she made his own retreat to her right so he wouldn't take her back, and they stayed squared up. They continued this dance for several minutes before she could position them the way she wanted. As she planned this time, when she advanced, Issei's back hit a tree, and he was trapped with no escape. Kizara then raised her shurnai and brought it down with fury upon her lecherous brother. Matsuda and Motohama were still on the run when they heard a scream from the forest near their rendezvous point. They both clicked their tongues, knowing Issei was caught, but they soon realized their own doom. Matsuda tripped while in a full sprint and landed on his face thanks to a busted brunette he was well acquainted with. As Murayama stepped out of her hiding spot, she could only look at him with disgust as she stepped on his bald head. Meanwhile, Motohama was sweating bullets while zigzagging through the campus buildings since he had just heard his second comrade scream over by the study hall. Sure enough, as he rounded the next corner to his safe haven, wham! He took a shurnai to the face. After he landed, his vision cleared, and he adjusted his glasses, revealing Kate as the most violent of the kendo team as she stood over him, pressing her shurnai down on him. "Any last words?" she asked before starting the perv's daily beating. Flashback end. Part 2. Nearby, at the old school dorm, the Occult Research Club was having its afternoon meeting. As a third scream echoed from campus, the four of them continued to talk without paying attention. Rias and Aquino were playing chess, while Kaneko and Kiba were watching while drinking tea. Aquino starts by moving her pawn to e4. "Rias, why are you interested in that boy?" Rias moves her pawn to e5 and smiles at Aquino's question. "I guess you can call it a woman's intuition. There is something about him that strikes me as different." Aquino moves her knight to f3 as Kiba chimes in. "Could he have some hidden power?" This school's students are 90% supernatural. Rias moves her knight to c6 as she answers Kiba. "Maybe it's his lack of specialness that makes him stand out. His two friends have already started to develop hidden power, but he has not." Aquino plays bishop to c4 before commenting, "That is a good point. While they don't have sacred gears or have any unique bloodlines, the remaining 10% typically gains something from the other 90. Take his sister, she has topped the kendo team, even going beyond Ogura-san and Ishihara-san." Rias counters with knight to d4 as Kiba gives his opinion. "That's a good point. She might not be fast or powerful like them, but her skills and technique are high enough to fight some supernatural beings." Aquino then takes Rias' pawn on e5 with her knight. Kaneko finally speaks up. "President, leaving the perv aside, there is also the matter of the intruders in town. What shall we do about them?" Rias then moves her queen to g5 and answers, "Leave them for now. They have a reputation for not harming humans, and being what kind of school this is, they would be foolish to touch any students." Aquino then takes Rias' pawn on f7 with her knight, with clear malice emanating from her due to the subject at hand, despite the smile she still wore. "President, if you'd like, I can go nicely. Ask them to leave immediately." Rias takes Aquino's pawn in g2 and turns her down. "That won't be necessary. Their faction leader doesn't want war, and we don't need to give him a reason to change his mind." Akino tries to protect her king and queen by moving her rook to f1 and rebuts Rias. However, he is always collecting sacred gear and training their users for his fighting force. For someone who doesn't want war, he is spending a lot to boost his military. I don't trust them, Rias. Rias retreats and takes Akino's pawn in e4 before replying to her, check. I understand your concern, Akino, but I trust my brother and Sona's sister when they say there is no chance of them hurting anyone here. Akino, slightly frustrated, moves her bishop to e2. Yes, Rias, but can we at least watch them? Rias smiles and moves her knight to f3, ending the game. Checkmate. Yes, I'm sure that won't hurt, she says, turning to the other girl, Kaneko. Kaneko looks up from her tea. Yes, President? Rias smiles and asks her, can you please keep an eye on those visitors of ours? Kaneko sits her empty teacup down and replies, yes, President. The bell rings for them to return to class for the end-of-day homeroom. As they were walking out, Akino asked Rias one last question. What are you planning to do with that boy? Rias paused before looking back and saying, I'll have my familiar give him a contract flyer. It will be up to fate after that. In Class A2's end-of-day homeroom, Kizaru was scrolling through her phone while everyone else was chatting. While she pretended it didn't affect her, her brother's actions always drew negative attention to her, and today was no exception. The stigma of his peeping during clubs spread so fast that they moved all the way from his Class C2 to her Class A2. At times like this, she was glad to have separate classes. In middle school, she was always embarrassed because the students were put into classes based on name, and she was always in the same classroom as her brother. Once they entered high school, though, it was based on GPA, and she, as in a grade student, and her brother, as a grade student, were separated into different classes. But this created its own problems, such as the two vice captains of the Kendo club jealous of her being in the same class as Kiba and Saji, who ended up in the same class as the perverted trio. However, there were exceptions to the rules. For example, Motohama, an A student, was moved to C2 due to his behaviors as a member of the perverted trio. Similarly, Aika Kiriyu, another A+ student, was moved to C2 because she liked to tease and grope other girls. Even Kizaru was a victim of it, but being around her brother, she learned how to hit first and talk later, and Aika never tried her again. But not every transfer was a downgrade. Both Aliki Leopa, the Jairu, and Kate, whose real names far escaped Kizaru's vocabulary, got promoted. Aliki was originally in C2 with her brother, and his friends ended up being harassed by Motohama and Matsuda, thinking that being a tan blonde gal with big bobas and twin tails, she would be easy for them to pick up. However, they should have relied on Issei's instincts to avoid trouble because she beat the two of them senselessly. A combination of that and her grades got her promoted. Kate, on the other hand, transferred this year as a foreigner. She wasn't able to speak any Japanese or do any math, so they put her in D2. A few weeks in, she suddenly was able to speak Japanese fluently and was the top student in the school, even passing Motohama, earning her a promotion to A2. Many more found her more surprising than Aliki. After all, she had pink hair and eyes and wore a lab coat over her uniform. Kizaru looked up from her phone as the two girls who were talking with the boys in the class. Kate was talking to Saji, and while her expression remained stoic, her face blushed as she talked about something on her tablet with him. Aliki, on the other hand, was sitting on Kiba's desk trying to seduce him, but he just remained polite and made small talk. It was then that she noticed Kiba glance at her and look away quickly. At the sight, her heart fluttered a bit. She wasn't one for romance typically, and she surely wasn't like her brother and let her urges control her. Despite that, she, like most girls, had an interest in Kiba, and the fact he was stealing glances at her made her giddy inside. Aliki happened to notice and traced his line of sight to her, and when they made eye contact, she waved, showing a clear message that she knew Kizaru was staring at him. It was then that the class door opened, and Shinra Tsubaki called out to Saji. After he and Kate spoke with her for a moment, Saji left with her, and Kate came over to Kizaru. Kate smiled and said, "Hayada-san, the student council wants to know if you can ask your brother to see there after school, please?" Kizaru instantly became sullen at being the messenger again for her brother. With a sigh, she affirmed, "Sure thing, Kate-san." As Kate left again, Kizaru looked back at Kiba, who broke eye contact as soon as they connected, a point she clearly saw bothering Aliki. Before Kizara let it bother her, the bell rang, and Kizara had to leave and meet her brother waiting by the door for her. She gave him an exasperated look before asking, "Aniki, why do you always wait for me after school?" "It's disgusting," Issei scoffed. "Mom and Dad would kill me if something happened to you by letting you go home alone." "TSK." Kizara clicked her tongue before informing Issei, "Well, the student council wants to see you. I'll wait by the gate." Issei's face paled. "Oh shit, what will that glasses-wearing devil do to me this time?" Issei scratched his head with worry as he ran off. Kizara sighed and headed to the gate as she said, "Despite his flaws, Issei does well in the older brother department, sometimes seeing her home safely and being honest. If only he wouldn't be so perverted and cleaned up his act, he might actually find a girl," she thought in the back of her mind as she waited for him. Part 3. As Issei unenthusiastically went to the student council office, Kizara took her book bag and shurnai carrier, put them on her shoulder, and went to stand at the gate as she agreed. However, once she got there, another girl was waiting. Not to be impolite, she greeted her, "Good evening, Leopa-san." Alika scoffed and responded, "Stop acting all sweet. I totally saw you in class, totally checking out Kibakun while I was, talking to him. There's no way I'm going to let you, steal him from me." Kizara's mood immediately soured even more at the situation that was unfolding. Kizara slid her shurnai bag off her shoulder but didn't make it threatening before she replied angrily, "Oh, don't start that, Yudo-san, don't give any girl the time of day." She further stated in a no-nonsense tone, "Just because I looked at him once during class doesn't change the fact that he still rejects you, so don't come yelling at me as if I had any part in it." Alika crossed her arms and rebutted Kizara's attempt to deny having a connection to Kiba. "No way, you can't honestly say you and Kibakun aren't, chatting behind my back. I totally saw him, totally into you the whole time in homeroom." Kizara grew more irritated and barked back at the Jairu. "Knock off your baseless accusations, girl, I'm telling you we haven't talked." Kizara planted her shurnai and bag into the ground between them and added, "If he was looking my way, it was out of his own volition and doesn't have shit to do with me, got it?" Alika uncrossed her arms and stepped up to Kizara. "Oh my gosh, seriously, don't even think I'll put up with you using that tone, bitch. And if you don't quit talking to Kibakun, I am, totally gonna kick your ass." Kizara finally snapped at the girl's further goading. "Oh, does the class tramp want to fight?" she hissed while pulling her shurnai out. Alika pops a bubble from the bubblegum she was chewing and cracks her knuckles at Kizara. "So totally bring it, I'm, super ready to send a bitch to the hospital." Alika immediately started it off with a roundhouse that Kizara blocked with her shurnai. Kizara countered with a vertical swing from her guard that Alika sidestepped and attempted to punch her in turn. Kizara was able to get out of the swing's reach, but Alika grabbed her collar and pulled her too close to use her shurnai. Therefore, Kizara grabbed Alika's twin tail and pulled it as hard as she could, which led to them being stuck in a place where they just threw insults. "OMG. Let go, ugh, not before you let off, skank. Who are you calling a skank, you total, bitch? Oh, maybe I should call you skunk with that perfume you wear. Oh, hell no, totally not. I am, so over this bitch today." Then Sauna Shirtorai, the student council president, and Issei arrived and stopped their fight. "Okay, you two, that's enough," she clapped her hands and continued, "for fighting on school grounds. I want you to both write me a 1,000-word apology letter by morning, or you'll be suspended." Everyone froze, expecting them to protest, but Issei did so before either of the girls could. "What the hell, student prez? You said my letter was 5,000 words. Why was Kizara let off when she was fighting?" Sauna shot him a threatening look, which took the wind out of his sails, so he shut up and walked away to complain. Kizara then let go of Alika's hair and Alika shoved her away before stomping off. Kizara straightened her shirt, bowed, and apologized. "I'm sorry, student council president, for both my brothers and my behavior today. I will be sure to keep us both on our emotional lines going forward." Sauna smiled and replied to Kizara, "Don't be too hard on yourself. Kizara Hayadus and I, too, have an older sibling who can't control their impulses, so I get it." Kizara raised her head at the reveal. I didn't know Shitori-san had an older brother. Sauna's smile relaxed a bit, and she corrected her, older sister, actually, but she is still quite the handful. However, being a younger sibling and a third party, I understand Issei cares about you a lot. Kizara looked over at Issei, grumbling to himself outside the gate, waiting for her to leave. Really, all he ever does is cause trouble. I never saw him do anything to help me. Sauna adjusts her glasses and speaks with her voice lowered slightly. Right, he likely doesn't want you to know it, but the reason he got a 5,000 word apology is so covert for you. She then looks away toward the kendo clubroom. By taking the blame, he and his friends are making it so you and the kendo vice captains aren't disciplined for assaulting them and losing your club. This fact shook Kizara. At first, she thought it odd that anyone could beat the perverts senseless without getting in trouble, but she felt the administration overlooked it as just desserts. She never considered Issei taking the blame for everyone. Kizara smiled at her brother and once again bowed to Sauna. Thanks again, student council president, then ran off to join her brother to leave. After that, the siblings left and stopped at the store before hiding home. Once they were out of earshot, Kizara had put the secret about Issei behind her, and they started to bicker. As they approached the bridge out of the shopping area, Kizara asked Issei, "So what the hell do you think you're doing back there?" Issei didn't reply, so she continued, "It's bad enough that we are in the same grade, in the same school, but you got to make a habit out of being a goddamn pervert, and make my life hell." Issei, still lost in thought, replied monotony, "Sorry, it's just in my nature, I just like bobas." Kizara clicked her tongue and hissed, "Oh, grow up. You're even worse than Grandpa was." Issei, sensing Kizara's mood worsening, tried to change the subject. "Speaking of bobas, when me and the guys met up at the old school dormitory, there was this hot redhead in the window. I thought that building was abandoned." Kizara, now even more annoyed, replied, "For a guy who spends his whole life chasing asses all the time, I figured you would know her. She is Rias Gremery. That building is the clubroom for the occult research club she runs. She's also one of the most attractive third years at this school, along with the student council president and vice president. And you telling me you don't know who she is?" Kizara scuffed and stormed away toward home, mumbling, "God, why can't I have a normal brother?" As they crossed the Co-Bridge, she passed a high school girl wearing a red blazer with a red ribbon and a green skirt going the opposite direction. As Kizara thought to herself that she didn't recognize that uniform as one from a nearby school, she paused when the girl stopped and asked her brother, who was about 10 steps behind her, "Excuse me? Would you happen to be Issei Hayadu?" Kizara stopped and looked back, seeing her brother baffled, but she assumed to herself, "He got himself in trouble again, and I'm not going to bail you out, not this time." She continued toward home, leaving the girl and her brother to whatever punishment this girl would give him this time. Roughly 1 hour later, as she was washing dishes after dinner, her brother decided to waltz with a big grin on his face. She could not help but be confused by his attitude, so she turned and asked him, "So what did you do this time?" He replied with a confused look and said, "Huh?" Growing irritated, she clarified, "A girl would not approach you unless you did something stupid or perverted and wanted to get back at you. So tell me, what happened?" Now understanding what his sister meant, Issei grinned and said, "She asked me to go out with her." Kizara, in a moment of disbelief, and I accidentally dropped a plate on the floor and broke it, cursing in response. Then she shook her head as she picked the pieces up and said, "Pull the other leg. I know with your perverted antics better than anyone, no one would ever ask you out." Getting a bottle of green tea out of the fridge, Issei grinned and said, "Somebody just did, by the way. Her name is Amano Yuma. She goes to a school in the next town over," smiling as he climbed the stairs to his room. Kizara turned back to the sink, thinking it was impossible. But if it were true, this might be a chance for her brother to grow up and become normal. Thinking about that, smiling, and silently claiming to herself, "Good luck, Onaikan, for once I'm rooting for you." However, her smile faded into annoyance when her brother yelled down the stairs, "By the way, we are going on a date Sunday, so try not to embarrass me at school." As Issei entered his room and crashed on the bed, his mind wandered back to what had just happened. Flashback. As Issei was thinking about the redhead stuck in his mind from this morning and ignoring his sister's nagging next to him, he looked up when she ran off ahead just to make eye contact with a cute girl walking their way. The girl walked on by her sister, but she stopped him before he could pass her. Excuse me? Would you happen to be Issei Hayadu? Issei was flabbergasted and could only reply with huh? At first. Then the cute girl fidgeted a bit, blushed, and quickly said, I'm sorry. I must have surprised you. Then I looked at him with upturned eyes. Her innocence caused Issei to stutter, so he tripped over his words some. Yeah, I'm Issei, can I help you? The girl covered her mouth and giggled at Issei's words before smiling at him. As Issei nervously rubbed the back of his neck, the girl stepped forward and got on her tiptoes from her shorter stature to look at him in the eye close enough she could feel her breath. Issei's heart fluttered, and he blushed ear to ear as she spoke to him. Ever since I saw you at the park a few months ago, I've wanted to talk to you. Issei's mind raced back to the day she must have been referring to. He and his sister were there over winter break, and a cat fell into the fountain. He went in to get it for Kazara's sake but ended up with a cold afterward. See, I guess I did look a bit silly that day. Was that kitten yours? The girl smiled and pivoted on her toes away from him, fluttering her skirt and showing off her panties to his delight. No, but I thought it was quite heroic of you to save the poor thing. I couldn't talk back then, so I asked around, and everyone said you went to school near here. She then turned back to face him. Unfortunately, there were all these nasty rumors that you were a monster to girls. She then looked at him with upturned eyes again. You aren't mean to girls, are you? Issei paled and blurted out a rebuttal. No, of course not. I love girls, why would I be mean to them? The girl reached out, took Issei's hand, and smiled. That's great. You see, my name is Amano Yuma, and I was wondering if I could be your girlfriend. Flashback end. As Issei was dazed, a knock was heard on his door, and Kazara came in. Here is your dinner, Aniki. She left the pork katsu, miso soup, and rice on his desk and exited. Issei's stomach rumbled as he hopped up to eat, excited for the weekend so he could go on his first date. As her brother asked her, she did not say anything or do anything to embarrass him at school for his new potential relationship. However, it was all in vain because the foolish clown made a mockery of himself by bragging to his friends and classmates. As Friday afternoon began, Kazara sat on a bench in the park, out of sight of her brother, who was sitting at the other end of the park, waiting for his date. After some time passed, her mind began to wonder and think back to the days leading up to today. Flashback. The morning after Issei dropped the news that Amano Yuma had asked him out, the Hayata siblings were on their way to school. Kazara was exhausted from her parents going wild over breakfast, but Issei was brimming with energy. Once the bridge was within sight, they could see that the girl was waiting on it again, and Issei took off running and stopped to talk to her. A few minutes later, Kazara, who maintained a walking pace, caught up with them and heard Yuma giggling and Issei turning red like a tomato. As Kazara stopped next to them and placed her hand on her hip, she looked Yuma up and down. So you're Amano Yuma, I'll be blunt, are you serious about being with my Aniki? Issei's head jolted in Kazara's direction before saying, Kazara. Don't say that. Before turning back to Yuma. Yuma-chan, please don't let her bother you. Yuma paused for a moment, looking back and forth between them before bowing to Kazara. I'm sorry if I made things difficult since we have yet to meet properly. My name is Amano Yuma. I hope to get along with you. Kazara pauses and bows back. Kazara Hayadu, pleased to meet you. After straightening back up, to continues, sorry about my blunt question, but Aniki's behavior makes it difficult to trust you. Plus, you just met yesterday. Do you know who he is? Once again, Issei tries to control the damage. Come on, Kazara, do you got to do this? However, Yuma tugged on his sleeve and stepped up to speak to Kazara. I know it's strange, but I first noticed Issei in the nearby park a while back. He saved a kitten that fell into the fountain. After Kazara nodded, Yuma continued, since then, I searched for him to see if we could meet. It was from a few other girls that I heard you go to Ko. Since then, I have watched for him and seen him going to and from school with you. At first, I was worried that you were dating him, but at the same time, watching each day made my feelings grow until I just had to talk to him yesterday. After she finished, Kazara pondered her words and asked, I can understand watching from afar. I do that too. She averted her eyes as Kiba crossed her mind, but since you've never seen him at school, I hope you aren't disturbed once you know his true nature. Issei once again turned red. Kazara, Are you trying to get Yuma-chan to break up with me? Seeing his desperate outburst, Yuma giggles again and pulls out her phone. Kizarachi, please exchange contacts with me. Kizara smiled, pulled out her phone, and exchanged numbers with her before turning to Issei. Let go, Aniki, or we will be late for class, she said, walking away. Issei quickly says his goodbyes and chases after Kizara. Bye, Yuma-chan, I'll see you after school. After getting to school, the rumor mill exploded at the gossip that Issei Hayadu, of all people, managed to find a girlfriend. Finally, at club time, at the end of the day, Murayama and Keitase made a beeline right toward Kizara. What is going on? Did that idiot find a girlfriend? It's got to be blackmail, it has to be blackmail. Kizara listens to them before stopping them. Okay, let's start the club already. With that, they change into their uniforms and, after finishing, notice that their regular peeping toms are nowhere to be found. Hey, where are the pervs, Mura? Did you see them? No, Kizara, there is no way they stopped. What did you do? Kizara sighs. Cat, Mura, have you considered that maybe they just didn't do it this time? No, there is no way in hell that's true. Let's go. Cat, we got to find them before the others get here. Kizara sighed again and followed them, hoping she was not wrong. After looking around the clubroom, the girls are told by passing students that the perv trio was at the outside lunch area. After moving to that location to check, they see Issei on the phone and the other two having a meltdown. Hey Yuma-chan, hope this is a good time, Issei says over the phone. Why Yuma-chan? Deadpants Motohama. No, curse you, Hayata, there is no way, says Matsuda with tears of blood. Issei grinned at them with arrogance, then got back to his call. Yeah, my friends want to know if they can also be introduced. Pause, of course. I'd love to meet your friends too. With that, Motohama and Matsuda threw themselves at Issei's feet in a Dajiza bow. Praise Lord Issei. All hail Issei. Hero of perverts. King of poor. Issei kicked Matsuda to stop him from finishing his sentence. As he is wrapping up his conversation, three girls approach him. He looks up to see Murayama and Keitase, with an exhausted-looking Kizara close behind. Nah, we are coming too. Mura's right, there is no way we will let you trick this poor girl any further. We are not taking no for an answer, right, Kizara? Everyone looks at Kizara, who shrugs. Issei, on the other hand, stutters over the phone. Sorry Yuma-chan, it appears our group just got bigger. Pause. Yeah, Kizara's friends want to meet you too. Pause. Okay, talk to you soon. Bye. After he got off the phone, the scene became a loud mess of yelling and jeering. However, nearby, a petite white-haired girl who was watching got up and left for the old school building. Shortly after Kaneko watched the Kendo and perverted trio make plans to meet up later, she entered the Occult Research Club's room. As she closed the door behind her and sat on the sofa, her master, Rias Gremory, sat her teacup down and asked, So Kaneko, what have you learned? Kaneko picked up her tea before beginning. Both Hayata-senpais met up with their leader yesterday and this morning. They just planned for them to bring their friends to meet up after school today. Akino's hearing this turned Rias concerned. It appears they are planning on recruiting some of our students, after all. To think that they were able to spot Issei Hayata's potential just like you did. Rias sat and thought for a second before responding. Of the three schools, Ko Academy, Illuminata Academy, and Limbo Academy, this is the first time I've ever heard of poaching students. The closest case would probably be when we rescued Kiba. She looked at Kiba as she said that. Kiba smiled and responded, That I am thankful for, though I doubt they even know you took me in since I was supposed to die. Kiba paused momentarily, adding, Honestly, I'm concerned for Kizarasan. While they are focused on Issei, as we said, he appears powerless on the surface, yet she has made strides in Kendo, which would be very welcome at Limbo Academy. So, you think that they might be looking at taking Kizara-chan and Issei as just a means to do so? Asked Akino to clarify. Before he could respond, Ria stood up. Regardless of who among those students the fallen are trying to take back to their school, we can't allow it to happen. Ria summoned her familiar, and a small bat appeared and transformed into a beautiful woman. Rias instructed her, Devi, please take some flyers and hand them out to those 6 students before they meet up with the fallen. As the woman bowed and left, Rias bit her thumbnail and muttered, Please don't let this go wrong, as she stared out the window. At the gate after school, as the unexpected group of 6, consisting of 3 boys and 3 girls, left the school, many students murmured, which upset the girls. I knew we shouldn't have left with these losers. Mura, hey Kizara, why can't you stay behind so we don't have to walk with your brother and his friends? Complained Kates. Kizara sighed before responding, let it go, Kat and Mura. Think of it as you're walking with me, not them. Mura muttered as they walked, I still don't trust these idiots. I'm going to record them being stood up by these fake girls and share it on TikTok. She pulls out her phone. As the girls complained behind them, the boys were giddy about meeting up with beauties waiting for them ahead. Hee, I'm telling you, my girlfriend is 10x hotter than any girl in our school. Play your cards right, and I bet you guys can hook up with her friends, issei bragged. Boy, if we get there and you're bullshitting us, I'm going to kick your ass, threatened Matsuda. Before he could complain, Motohama got distracted and pointed at a crowd ahead of them, hot cosplayer spotted, and ran off with the other 2 on his heels. Behind them, the 3 girls stared in contempt as the 3 boys ran up to the lady cosplaying as a maid with bat-like wings and designs on her outfit. Once they closed the distance and reached her, she offered each a flyer, just like she had done for the boys. They each took one to avoid being rude and moved on as the boys trailed behind. As they walked, Kizara gave it a once-over and found it an offer to contract a group for anything you wanted. Anything? Kizara questioned. Beside her, Murayama and Kates also commented as they looked theirs over. Maybe they run a freelance business, like handyman repairs or housekeeping. I'm sure that's it. After all, that lady was dressed up like a cosplay maid. Behind them, Matsuda blurted, I'll pay a fortune for a babe like that came and cleaned my place. You can't afford a babe like that, you jock. Look, they didn't even list the price on it. It's so expensive. Even the back is just a survey for how they did. Motohama rebuked him. Overhearing them, Kizara flipped hers over to confirm he was right. There wasn't a price, only a survey. Issei just stuck his in his pocket and bragged again. I don't need it. I have a babe waiting for me, and I don't want to disappoint. That comment made the rest, except Kizara, click their tongues in protest. On the other hand, she glanced back and noted, I just hope you don't go back to being a perverted lunatic, and you break up. Issei stuck his nose up and said, Nope, no more peeping or chasing for me. That's reserved for Yuma-chan. We need to get girlfriends too. You know it. We can't be the only 2 getting our asses beat anymore, the other 2 cried. Murayama looked back and growled, We dare you to try and peep still. We will beat you until you can't see any more next time. No, Kizara interrupted, thinking back to what Sona told her before on how Issei took their punishment for the beatings before she looked back at the 3 of them with a cold, deathly stare. Since Issei is no longer an issue, I will deal with them myself. As she spoke, all 5 of the others felt a chill go down their spines. However, it was short-lived, for the bridge had come into view. As the group of 6 got close enough that the 3 girls waiting for them were visible, Issei moved to the front of the group, and the rest watched as a cute black-haired girl perked up, ran up, hugged Issei, and jumped up and down with joy. Eek, Issei-kun, I missed you so much. Seeing the scene unfold before them, the others who came along with him wore shocked expressions, while Kizara was just exhausted. Like something snapped, everything got noisy. The 2 boys ran up to the couple, causing Yuma to hide behind Issei as he tried to hold them back. Meanwhile, the Kendo VPs grabbed Kizara and shook her while yelling at her, There is no way, I tell you. He was telling the truth. How is that possible? It's blackmail, I tell you. It has to be blackmail. The other 2 girls from the bridge approached as the Hayata siblings settled their friends down. Yuma stepped away and introduced them to the group. This tall Onizen is Ogawa Rin. You can call her Rin-chan. The tall girl with blue hair and gold eyes just turned her head away, crossed her arms, and muttered, Yeah, whatever. Yuma then turned to the petite, short blonde girl. And this little cutie is Kuratori Hibiki. The short girl, in turn, grinned and stated proudly while pointing at everyone, Count your blessings, humans, for you get to stand before someone as great as me. She then put her hands on her hips and added, Hihei, if you wish to be my servant, I suggest you bow at my feet at once. Before the 2 girls could add any more, the 2 boys that tagged along had made their moves. Matsuda dived at Hibiki's feet with a full Dajiza bow. If the lady would have me, I will be her servant for the rest of my life, while groveling the bald jock trying to kiss her shoes. while Hibiki started to retreat in panic. EW, stop it, you human! Eek. Motohama, on the other hand, pulled out his camera and started snapping photos of Rin while praising her emptily. I've never seen such a perfect model figure before. Tall, curvy, and regal. She's perfect. Rin quickly grew impatient with him as he closed in on her space. Hey, off you, dweeb! She drew back her fist but didn't need to. Fortunately, before they could get any creepier, both of them got hit over the head by Shernai by the two Kendo VPs as they spat venom in protest. I swear you two are the worst. Would it kill you to be sensible, you jackass? As Yuma continued to cling to Issei's arm, watching the scene, she focused on Kazara, who approached separately and bowed. I'm sorry for how the others are acting. They are just overly excited to meet you. Yuma snapped to attention at Kazara's apology. Oh, it's okay. She then turned to Issei. Your friends and their girlfriends are quite fun, aren't they? Overhearing her, Murayama and Keitase yell at the same time. No, absolutely not, and no one would date the perverted trio. But their words cut off when they see Yuma hugging Issei again. Yuma stood shocked for a second before she started laughing and, once down, hugged Issei's arm harder before asking, Hey, since we are all here, why don't we head over to Starbucks? As everyone cheered and agreed, the nine packed their stuff and walked to the coffee shop. Afterward, they all chatted, and the boys and VPs continued their Tsukomi and Boke routine, leading Yuma and, eventually, Hibiki to laugh repeatedly. As the night quieted down, each went their way. As they got home, the Hayate house was booming. Not only were their parents worried first, but they were also excited about their kids' social life growing. As they went to their rooms, Kazara couldn't help but feel cheerful about the day. After hanging out with Yuma and her friends, she learned to enjoy their company. Flashback End. Part 2. Kazara's wandering mind focused back to reality when her brother stood up after sitting on a bench in the park for over an hour to greet Amano Yuma. She was not in uniform but wore a pink blouse and a black skirt. She had two thoughts as she watched them from the other side of the park. The first was, how could such a beautiful girl have any interest in that brother of mine? The second was, did that idiot come and sit for an hour before the meeting? The idea still ran through her head despite meeting her and their friends and hanging out the past couple of days. But something still bothered her, hence why she was stalking them at a distance. The day continues with her observing their date. She had tagged along because she convinced herself that her bad feeling was to make sure her brother did not do something foolish, such as take her to a love hotel or push this girl's kindness and do something disgusting. Shockingly, it turns out that her brother is quite serious about this relationship. While the date that he took her on was quite normal, and unfortunately, quite dull, he maintained an attitude of respect and appeared innocent. They started by going to a restaurant and getting parfaits, and then he took her to the arcade. Kazara winced in embarrassment. She knew he was just being himself, but this was not a place to take a girl on a date. After that, they stopped at the shopping center and looked at clothes and electronics, like phones. As she watched them, she noticed Yuma's attention was drawn back to a pink scrunchie. At first, Issei didn't notice, but to her surprise he bought it when Yuma was sidetracked and gifted it to her. As she watched her jump up and down in a cute girly celebration, Kazara silently praised Issei for how he was able to turn this date around after being so dull all day. It was approaching evening. As they returned to the park and approached the water fountain, Kazara thought this might be good for Issei. He was standing a short distance away while Yuma was on her phone talking with her back to him. Suddenly, she felt a chill throughout her entire body. It happened when Yuma got off the phone and turned back to Issei. She looked the same, but Yuma's demeanor had changed. Before, she was girly, cute, and clingy. However, now she was closer to Alec at school. When they were fighting, she was almost bloodthirsty. As she pondered what might have happened in that phone call to lead to this complete behavior turnaround, Yuma approached Issei. Leaning forward, she whispered something to him, and she saw her brother tense up. The next thing she saw, all she wished was a dream. Yuma suddenly transformed. She grew taller, her figure filled out and her clothes burst and were replaced with what could be only called a BDSM outfit. But that was only the tip of the iceberg, for she also grew two jet black crow-like wings and then, with a red thorn-shaped spear, stabbed her brother in the chest. When her brother collapsed to the ground, the girl monologued over him momentarily. showing off the pink scrunchie. With a polite farewell, the girl flew off into the sunset. Kizara was utterly terrified. Her blood was icy, and her arms, legs, and body were completely numb. She tried to get up and run to her brother's side, but her legs didn't work. She stumbled and fell, and she couldn't walk. That's when she saw a red glowing light from her brother's body. Panicking, even more adrenaline rushed through her, pushing the cold out, and she ran to his side and grabbed him as he coughed out blood. He was still alive and barely conscious. But Kizara was so panicked by the red glow she couldn't speak. Then the slip of paper that she saw the cosplayer give her brother, and everyone else, flew out of his pocket and burst into what could only be called a magic circle, bringing forth all people Rias Gremory. She watched in disbelief, terror, and confusion as one of the most beautiful girls in the school knelt next to her brother opposite of her. Next, she saw her pull 8 glowing objects out of her pocket and place them on her brother's chest. As they sank into his chest, his wound healed, and he coughed and gagged, showing his fading life was now back. Kizara tried to scream as she kneeled next to Issei, tears running down her face, but she couldn't. When she tried, nothing came out. It was then that 3 more people arrived to greet Rias. She recognized all 3 of them as fellow students of Kohai School. The woman with a long black ponytail was Akino Himejima, the Occult Research Club vice president. Kaneko Tuju, the school mascot, was also there, and finally, her classmate from Class A2, Ito Kiba. It was like she wasn't even there. Rias stood up and spoke to the others, but Kizara couldn't hear them. She couldn't talk or even breathe from the fear that seeped back into her body from the events that had just occurred. It all shattered when Kaneko picked Issei up, and Kiba knelt next to Kizara again and spoke to her. "Calm down, Hayadusan President Rias, and we will save your brother. So let's get you 2 home." When her strength finally returned, she got up, dived onto Kiba, clung to him, and sobbed. "Please save Anakin, please save him." As Kiba patted her back, everyone was engulfed in a red glow, and the next thing they knew, they were all in Issei's room. After calming down, exhaustion overwhelmed her, and Kiba picked her up in a princess carry. She tried to observe the events going on. Inside the room, Kaneko placed Issei on the bed. Kaneko whispered to Rias, "He will die if we don't do something," to which Rias replied, "He'll live. I will be sure of that myself. You are all dismissed. Please head home and get some rest." Kizara was relieved to hear that her brother would live, but she was worried about what was happening and at a loss. After a moment that seemed like an eternity of thought, she rationalized that if they were making this much effort towards saving her brother's life, there would not be much chance of them bringing harm to her family. In addition, she knew all those involved and intended to speak to her classmate the next day. Upon that conclusion, she passed out in Kiba's arms. The following day, Kizara woke up exhausted. She had very little sleep the night before, considering what happened, and she was unsure if it was even real or a dream that she had. Regardless, she headed downstairs to help her mom prepare breakfast. As she entered the kitchen, her mother said, "Goodness, dear, for you to sleep in this late is unusual." Kizara then checked the clock and saw it was 8:30 a.m. She apologized, and her mom replied, "Can you take over cooking the miso soup while I wake up your brother?" Kizara, remembering what happened the night before, stumbled over her words. She tried to make up an excuse for her mother not to bother her brother, but it failed. A few moments later, her mom went up the stairs to wake her brother. The next thing she knew, her mother screamed and ran down the stairs. In the back of her mind, Kizara was freaking out with thoughts going through her head, such as, what did they do to my brother? Is he all right? How can I explain this? But that all neatly changed to confusion when her mother yelled, "Oh, our son is sleeping with a foreigner." A few minutes later, Issei and Rias came down the stairs together. As she finished cooking breakfast, she listened in as Rias told their parents that she and Issei had met yesterday at the park, and they decided to come home and study last night together. Her mother then asked the pair why they were naked. In a moment of shock, Kizara dropped the ladle on the floor, quickly apologizing and picking it up before taking it to the sink to be washed. Kizara continued to listen as Rias started telling bogus lies about current trends, and how their sleeping together would help make Issei smarter. After her explanation ended, she immediately got a headache and felt dizzy. She turned to look at the table and saw Mom and Dad were in similar condition. She started to approach the table and grabbed her head. Suddenly, the headache and dizziness were gone with a pop, and her mind was clear. However, Mom and Dad appeared somewhat dizzy, but they could converse again. I'm unsure what Rias did, but she hypnotized my parents and tried with me as well. However, for some reason, she was unaffected, and for that matter, either was issei. He turned and asked Rias, "What is happening?" She replied, "I put a minor suggestion in their mind to prevent future problems that may arise." From the looks of it, Mom and Dad did not hear their conversation, and they were under the impression that, like them, neither did Kizara. So she decided to use that to my advantage and pretended she did not hear or see anything unusual. As the three of them went to school, total hell broke loose. Kizara was glad it was Saturday, and that it would only be a half day because she wasn't entirely together after the night before and the morning she experienced. People were freaking out that one of the top girls at our school was walking with my brother and me. Some of them rationalized that she had business with me rather than him due to his perverted history. Regardless, it created a lot of noise as we entered the main campus building. She told issei, "I will have one of my servants pick you up after class." She then turned to me and said, "Kizara-chan, I hope you also have a wonderful day." She replied to her, "Thanks, you too, senpai," before heading to class. The class that day went by quickly, and at the end of the day, she decided to talk to Kiba. However, he stood up right away and started to leave, so she rushed to catch up with him and found that he had just gone 2 doors down to her brother's class. As he knocked on the door, all the girls squealed in delight because the Prince Charming had entered their class. However, that all disappeared and was replaced with murmuring and whispers when he asked to talk to issei. As issei followed Kiba out of class, Kates and Murayama followed them out and noticed me. Aborting their attempts to follow the boys, they made a beeline for me and asked, "What the heck is going on? Not only did you come to school with Rias-senpai, but Kiba-kun just came to get your brother from our class?" Kizara smiled and said, "I'm not sure, but I think my brother is trying to change his ways. I'm going to follow them just in case." Thinking quickly, she said, "If you girls don't mind, can you start club activities without me?" They looked at each other, smiled, and agreed. Likely more happy about me saying that my brother was changing than anything else, they happily walked to the club room. Despite forgetting about Yuma like everyone else, the fact that he hadn't been harassing them and that he stopped the other 2 perverts, too, wasn't forgotten. Perhaps he could still benefit from that, Kizara thought as she chased the boys. It took me a minute to catch up to the boys, but I found them as they started down the trail to the old school dormitories. I decided it was enough with the games and ran straight to them. She stopped them and asked if they had a moment. Her brother, in his normal annoying tone, asked, "What do you want?" "We're busy." She replied to him, "Shut it, asshole," cutting him off from speaking further. Then she turned to her classmate and asked, "Do you mind if I tagged along with you and my brother?" Kiba smiled and politely said, "I'm sorry, but we're going to participate in official club activities, and only club members can come along." As they turned away to continue, she stopped them and said, "I want to ask Rias Gremory about what happened last night." The boys froze and turned back to face her. After a moment of hesitation, Kiba invited her to tag along. We entered the building and went up the stairs to the Occult Research Club's club room. She felt increasingly nervous and scared about what could potentially happen. Once they entered the room, she noticed the same schoolmates from yesterday evening. The only exception was Rias herself, who appeared to be taking a shower in a portioned-off part of the room in the corner. Of course, her brother was losing his mind over the fact that he was in the same room as the school mascot and 2 of the most beautiful 3rd years, one of which was in a shower only covered by a curtain. Kizara tried to maintain a level head. While the others were surprised to see her as they entered the room, they decided non-verbally to go with it. Once the club president got out of the shower and dressed, she pulled the curtain and noticed Kizara. Like the others, she was surprised at first but then greeted her with a smile. She said, "Welcome to the Occult Research Club. I know Issei has come here to join us today, but what can I do for you, Kizara-chan?" Knowing that as far as she came, she couldn't turn back now, she decided to go ahead and ask, "Can you explain to me what happened to my brother last night, and what you did to our parents this morning?" She tried to show anger in her voice, but it came out more as fear. The whole group was surprised by the question but offered a seat and some tea. Once settled in, she threw a picture onto the coffee table before the siblings. It was a face neither could ever forget. It was Yuma, Issei's girlfriend, or, at this point, ex-girlfriend. Issei freaked out and said, "Wait a minute. Everybody I talked to today that I introduced her to say she didn't exist and thought I was dreaming." Rias replied and said, "That is quite understandable. The woman in that picture is a fallen angel. Her powers go beyond humans, and it's not far-fetched to say she's erased all their memories." Kizara asked, "What about you? What did you do to our parents this morning? Is that the same thing?" Rias paused and then apologized. "I'm sorry. I needed to do that to protect them from the world your brother has just entered." Kizara, confused, asked, "What do you mean?" Rias stood up and said, "I told your brother about it this morning, but I am a devil." As she said this, bat-like wings burst from her back. After that, everyone else stood up, and she continued, "And I'm not the only devil here, all of us are." Then everybody else in the group, including my brother, grew wings from their backs. Kizara panicked but mumbled, "Fallen angels and devils, this can't be right. Growing up, we were told that you're beings of evil and malice." She grabbed Issei's arm beside her with worry. Rias then sat back down and smiled. "There is no need to fear. I was going to go over this anyway with Issei. Allow me to explain." Part 3. Writing this next part using dialogue would be dull and repetitive, therefore, I'm going to summarize it. As Kizara and Issei calmed down, Rias explained that many thousands of years ago, there was a war between the devils and fallen angels in the underworld. That war grew until heaven got involved, making it a three-sided war between the powers. The war continued to grow until every other faction got involved, backing one group or another. It even spilled into the living world and involved humans. It ended with a ceasefire after a battle between two dragons left all three short on manpower and resources. Heaven lost a considerable part of their army, and its numbers were already small. The fallen angels' territory in the underworld shrank to only 20% of what it was. However, they were the first to retreat, so their numbers were not impacted as much. Finally, the devils were hit the hardest, with their numbers also depleted the most, and they lost their leaders, the four Satans: Lucifer, Leviathan, Beelzebub, and Asmodeus. If that wasn't enough, immediately after the three-sided war, multiple civil wars split the devils into the winged devils and the tailed devils, and the fall of the old Satans. After the history lesson, Rias explained how, under the new Satans, devils stopped attacking humans and started to make alliances with them. They used a new technology called evil pieces to turn gifted humans like Issei into devils. When Issei inquired about being gifted, she explained sacred gears. Upon hearing this, Kizara asked about the fallen angels' motives for killing Issei. That's when Rias introduced how, after the devils began to recruit humans, the church expanded its activities, and the fallen angels also recruited humans to compete with each other. This reached a point where three major schools were built: Illuminata Academy, Limbo Academy, and Co Academy. The first was Illuminata. It started as a place where exorcists were trained, but several of its projects to recreate heroes came to light over time. Many of these made you question if they were on the side of good. The second was the Limbo Academy, where humans with sacred gear were taken to train and work for the fallen angels. Finally, there is the Co Academy, where humans who are given evil pieces or could be given evil pieces are brought. After several decades, these schools began to take in regular students since the number of gifted humans was so low. About half the students who join are normal, but after spending some time around the ones with gifts, they eventually become gifted. Rias theorized that the three fallen angels likely originally wanted to steal Issei from Ko and send him to Limbo, but something happened to lead them to kill him instead. She already reported it to her superiors, but they can't move against them or retaliate due to the risk of war. Summary end. Several hours later, Kizara and Issei were walking home. It was quiet and nerve-wracking, but surprisingly, Issei was the one who broke the ice. That was quite the information dump, huh? Kizara was only able to reply with a meek yes. They just sat through a lesson explaining the supernatural, the workings of devils, angels, and fallen angels in society, and their conflicts. While she was relieved that the stories of devils being evil creatures were mostly fictitious and a thing of the ancient past, Kizara couldn't help but feel nervous about how things would proceed from here. Issei POV: a couple of days have passed since I became a devil, and I have started doing contracts on my own. President Rias gave Kizara an opportunity for a free contract, as a bribe to keep the fact that we're all devils a secret. They gave her another flyer since the first one she got was used when they teleported her back when issei was injured. She requested to come to the club in the evenings with me to observe club activities so she can best utilize the contract. Prez agreed, so she's been following me to the clubroom and observing us as the contracts are distributed and explained. After that, she returns to the kendo club, which she is the captain of. I know she's concerned about me, and rightfully so, after witnessing me and the club members take down a stray devil last night through the observation portal and the clubroom. It was during that battle that I learned from Rias that my sacred gear is called a twice critical, which doubles my power for a short period during combat. Except for that one time, the contracts have been rather mild, but difficult in their own way. I've found that most people turn to devils for either one minor annoying task such as manual labor, hanging out, or cooking and cleaning, two things I could only call impossible. One client whose request falls under the category of impossible is a regular of mine named Miltan. He is a giant of a man, with muscles on top of muscles, but wants me to turn him into a magical girl. On another note, I am currently on my way to school and am a bit late due to my morning training. Kizara and the rest should already be there, so I'm taking my time. Suddenly, I heard a shriek a ways to my right. I glanced over and saw the whitest pair of panties being displayed for the world to see. My head immediately started spinning with lewd thoughts, but I slapped myself out of it when I noticed that they belonged to a nun. I decided to help her to her feet, asking, "Are you okay?" after the girl sat up. When I saw her face, I realized she was a quite beautiful foreign blonde girl. She took my hand with both of hers and replied, "Thank you very much." Then we both paused, slightly confused. The reason was that she did not speak Japanese, and neither did I yet. We could understand each other perfectly. She was likely confused because the chances of someone speaking Italian in Japan are practically nil, and there I was speaking it fluently. I was also confused because I had never taken a foreign language, yet I was able to understand and speak to her. I pushed the thought to the back of my mind, viewing it as just an inherent ability of the devil, and continued their conversation. I handed her her headdress, and she thanked me again as she put it back on and made eye contact with me. I couldn't help but admire her beauty, and in turn, she blushed and asked, "Is something the matter?" I snapped out of it and replied, "No, nothing, let me help you with your luggage." As I turned to start picking up her belongings from the ground, I found myself frozen and stunned by the panties scattered around. After she noticed my reaction, startled, she jumped and squealed, oh my gosh, I'm sorry. Suddenly, she was blushing even worse than before. She then knelt, folded her hands together, and prayed, "Forgive me, my Father, for I have sinned, I have taken your name in vain, and shall not do so again, Amen." As she did this, the sharpest pain I had ever felt rushed through my skull. After the pain passed, I tried to hide it by helping to pick up her belongings. It was just a minor task, and it didn't take us long to finish. She offered me a handkerchief to wipe my brow, which I accepted with thanks. I asked her if she was on a trip. She replied, "No, I'm starting to work in this town's church today, but I got lost on my way there." I added, "I have also been having trouble because nobody seems to understand me." I took a moment to think and told her, "If you are looking for the church, I think I know where it is. Would you like me to take you there?" With excitement, she folded her hands and replied, "Do you mean it? This, too, is surely guidance from the Lord." With that line, I felt another sharp pain shoot through my head. This time, she noticed and asked me if something was wrong. I brushed it off, assuring her I was fine, and then said, "Let's get going." As we got about halfway there, a little boy tripped in the park we were passing and scraped his knee. The nun stopped, ran it over, knelt, and asked him, "Are you all right?" He looked at her in confusion as she said, "Hold still." She placed her hands over the boy's knee, and her rings glowed a light green color. I watched as the wound healed. The boy stood up, and she said, "There, your babeo is all better now, you should be just fine." The boy's mother ran over, and he tried to explain to her what the girl had just done. The nun smiled and tried to explain that she had just given him first aid. The mother scowled at the girl and said, "You shouldn't talk to strangers," pulling the boy away. The girl looked shocked, and then she became very sad. I felt my irritation starting to boil. As I tried to step forward to say something, the girl grabbed my arm and said, "No, it is fine." I asked, "Did you understand what the woman said?" She replied, "No, but I understood her eyes as she bowed her head. She heard a boy holler and looked up to see him waving at her. I translated for her that he said, 'Thanks.'" As we started back toward the church, I asked, "That power?" She hesitantly replied, "Well, it's a healing power that I got from God. It is a most wonderful gift." As she said that, I couldn't help but look at my left hand and waved her to follow along. About 10 minutes later, we neared the church. Once it was in sight, I felt an awful chill and started shaking all over. She offered me a chance to go inside, but I politely declined and rushed to make my way to school. I paused for a moment, turned back, and yelled, "My name is Issei Hayadu, so you can call me Issei." "What is your name?" She perked up and said, "I'm Asia Argento, please call me Asia." As I headed down the street to school, I could see she was still waving at me. Part 2. Kizara POV. That evening in the clubroom, my brother reported to his master, Rias, that he had met a sister of the church that morning. She immediately jumped to her feet and scolded my brother worse than I ever had. She went on to explain the workings of the church and the three factions to us once more. She concluded by warning him that he should never go near the church again, let alone the sister. After things calmed down, they began distributing the contracts. I was off from the Kendo club today, so I decided to stick around and observe the club activities. My brother received a new contract and decided to leave on his bike, as he always does. Meanwhile, I drank tea with Akena-san and watched the others perform contracts through the observation portal. At the time, Kaneko was cosplaying for an otaku in the southern part of town, and Kiba was washing the dishes of the widowed corporate manager in a high-rise building a few kilometers away. Everything seemed to be going well when suddenly the portal to Issei's contract started flickering and glowing red. Immediately, Rias and Akino jumped to their feet. Rias yelled for a message to be sent to tell the others to come back right away and prepare the magic circle at Issei's location as soon as possible. At that point, I panicked. Unsure of what was happening, I just kept watching the portal to see how things unfolded. Issei POV. I had just entered the house of my new client when a stench I wish I'd never smelled before filled my nose. There on the floor was the body of my client, and sitting on a couch in the living room was what I can only describe as a priest with a mad dog's face. The priest got up with an evil grin and said, well, why if it isn't a little devil, and followed up with a hum, "I am a priest, oh boy, isn't it my lucky day?" As the bells and whistles alarmed in my mind, I couldn't help but think, what the hell is this guy saying? To add to his crazy impression, he started to spin and dance, and tell me how he's going to cut me up and shoot me full of holes. My nerves were already on edge, so I started to ease backwards into my retreat. That's when the priest jolted right up to my face and said, "I'm Fried Selzen, the priest." I broke eye contact for a moment to look at my client and asked, "I'm guessing you did that?" He straightened up, grinned, and replied, "And what if I did?" After that I was completely pissed off, so he started to mock me. "What is that? You mad? A shitty little devil? Did my killing of a piece of shit human rile up some form of sympathy in you?" As my anger boiled over, I could do nothing but stare him in the eyes, which made him happy, for he had hopped back with a smile and said, "Okay, I'll cut you up and kill you good." Inside his coat, he pulled out something I could only describe as a lightsaber and activated it. Being well accustomed to sword shurnai, I activated my twice critical and took a half step back. The priest charged forward and my sacred gear chimed boost. Seeing that the priest was right-handed, I retreated back and to my right, just like I do with Kizara, Murayama, and the girls attack me, but what makes this case different is that I can counterattack. Exactly like with the Kendo club, Fried's blade missed me, and with me being on his left, and out of the range of his blade, I slammed my fist right into his solar plexus below his chest, forcing him back into the living room from the hall I retreated to. Fried managed to stay on his feet and scowled at me. I then heard a scream from the living room behind Fried. We both directed our attention to a girl I was familiar with. "Asia!" I yelled, and she turned and said, "Issei-san?" Fried then said, "Huh? You two know each other?" Asia asked me, "Issei-san, what are you doing here?" And with a terrified voice, asked, "And who did this?" Pointing at the corpse. Fried perked up. Oh, that was me, and grinned and followed up with, "As for this guy, he's the rotten devil that was trying to make that man sin." As he pointed his blade at me, Asia appeared devastated, unsure of what hit her harder, the fact that her partner, whom she had just met, was a cold-blooded killer, or that the first friend she made when she entered town was a devil, someone who was supposed to be her sworn enemy. At that point, something clicked in her mind, and she calmed down. She took off running toward me, then stopped between us and spread her arms as if shielding me from Fried. Fried then said, "What do you think you're doing?" I grabbed Asia's shoulder and asked her to get behind me. She struggled with refusal, but before I could move her, Fried drew a handgun from his hip with his left arm and shot me in both of my kneecaps, and I collapsed to the floor with a yell. I had no way to support my body weight on my injured legs, so Asia positioned herself to be my shield once more. As I tried to tell her that she needed to leave, she screamed in refusal. Fried grabbed her by the throat and pinned her to the wall by her wrists. He then grabbed her habit and tore it from her body. I tried to pull myself to my feet, pissed off even more, all the while screaming, "Let go of her, you filthy animal." Fried showed an evil smile and said, "I'll come back to you when I'm done with her." He turned back to her and said, "The leader said I cannot kill you, but maybe a little rape won't hurt." I was furious, but relief came soon after. A magic circle appeared behind me, one I recognized as belonging to my comrades. Fried quickly let go of Asia and drew his sword. The moment he did, he blocked an attack from Kiba, who rushed through the portal first. Kaneko was next and soon started tossing furniture at Fried to keep him at bay, while I crawled to where Asia was lying unconscious. I yelled at Rias, "We need to take her with us." Rias looked at me and said, "I'm sorry, only members of my group can use this portal." As the other club members held Fried at bay, they carried me through the portal back to the clubroom. Part 3. Kizara POV. I watched as the whole event unfolded from the portal in the clubroom, from my brother's fight with the priest to him begging Rias to allow them to bring the nun back with him. As it stands right now, they are arguing about the nun and her fate. Issei wants to go save her at this moment, while Rias says that Asia herself is part of the enemy. While it's not often that I would want to take my brother's side in this situation, I wish I could. However, since I'm not a member of the club and have no means to contribute, even if I were, I cannot. After Issei got some minor first aid and healing from Rias and Akino, we decided to head home. On our way I fessed up and said, "I think you're doing the right thing trying to save her." After a pause, I continued, "And I will support you until you do, but until we find a way, let's listen to Rias." "Okay?" Issei didn't reply, so we continued our trip home in silence. Since that day, my brother has stayed silent. Even now, as we walk through town, he isn't saying anything. It feels strange and scary that he, someone who'd normally be chasing girls as they pass on the street, is so depressed he can't even look up from the ground. Furthermore, his knees are still injured, which means he can't participate in his contracts. So, Rias gave him some time off to think, and I'm here with him to support him as best I can. It was when I got him to stop and eat with me at McDonald's that he suddenly came to and snapped out of his depression. Upon seeing this change in him, I became baffled, so I traced his line of sight to a blonde girl on the street. I recognized the girl as the nun he had been fussing over since that night. I tried to yell, "Wait!" at him as he got up and ran to the door, but I couldn't stop him. I quickly paid for our lunch and ran out to find him and her having a conversation in a language I couldn't understand. I cut in and asked him what they were talking about. It was then that he introduced me to the girl. Her name was Asia Argento. Her native language was Italian, but he was able to understand her since he was a devil. He asked if she could tag along with us. I was worried considering the events from before, but seeing my brother happy again, I agreed. He decided to show her around town, turning the day into what appeared to be a date very similar to the one he gave to Yuma. We took a break in the same park where that happened, and I just watched as they talked, wishing I could understand them. We decided to stop and rest on a bench in the park. I then saw her kneel in front of him and place her hands on my brother's knees. I started to panic, thinking, "Naniki, what the hell are you doing?" Then I noticed her hands, or more specifically the rings on our hands, started to glow. Afterward, my brother was able to stand up comfortably, and even hopped up and down. His knees were completely healed. Seeing my confusion, he turned to me and explained that, Like him, Asia has a sacred gear, and hers has the power to heal. He turned to her and thanked her, but something in his words upset her, so she began to cry, and my brother started to feel anxious. I cut in and asked him to translate what she was saying. It turns out she was telling what seemed like a story, and from what I could gather from my brother's translation of her sobs, it appears her healing ability led her to be considered a saint by the church. However, one day, when she healed another devil, she was excommunicated from the church and scorned and hated by all those she once considered friends. She was labeled a fallen maiden, a witch, and a heretic. She was cast out of the church and was scorned at every turn, only to be taken in by the fallen angels to be exploited for her sacred gear for their allies. The line he translated for me broke my heart into 1,000 pieces. Issei and I have a dream. I want to be normal sniff, and have friends I can shop with I can talk with I want a friend to do all kinds of things with. Without a pause after he translated, we both yelled back, I'll be your friend. She was shocked by our words. I cut in front of my brother before he could get in another word. I grabbed her shoulders and made it so her emerald green eyes stared at my dark eyes and attempted to copy what my brother just said in Italian, I be a friend. She tilted her head and stared at me with tears still in her eyes yet calm. I let go and tried to repeat what I had just said, but out of intuition, instinct, or desperation, I said it again and used hand signs, specifically sign language I had learned in junior high. I will be your friend. After she saw that, she lit up and, to my surprise, signed back to me, thank you so much. Realizing I now had a means to communicate with her, 1,000 things I wanted to say flooded my mind, but I pushed them away so I don't overwhelm her with questions. So I started my conversation with, do you know Japanese Sign Language? Yes, when I was a cleric with the church, deafness was a common condition I was asked to treat, so I was tasked with learning basic sign languages. They were quite fun to learn. That is great. I have so much I want to ask, but first of all, has my brother done anything strange to you? Huh, what do you mean? Issei has been only kind to me. He helped me with my luggage and even showed me to the church when I first got here and was lost. Plus all the neat things you both showed me today. Sorry, you see, my brother can be quite the dunce at times. She then looked at him, and then me, and covered her mouth and giggled. Issei chimed in at that point and asked, hey, what the hell are you talking about? I replied, nothing, stupid and Nikki, and returned back to her and signed, I'm happy I got to meet you, Asia. Once again, will you be my friend? She replied both verbally and signed, you'll be my friend? Before I could reply, Issei jumped back, and we're already friends, right? We talked about all kinds of stuff, and had all sorts of fun today. After she looked back at him, and then me, I signed, of course. Asia once again teared up and said between sobs, Issei-san, Kazara-san. Suddenly someone cut into our conversation. I don't think so. It was then that everybody's blood ran cold. Clearly, a presence had just entered the area, and while I could sense it too, the other two seemed to recognize it. We turned toward the water fountain and found Yuma sitting there. She got up and said in a disgusted tone, not only did you live, you became a devil? To make matters worse, here you are trying to seduce one of my servants. As my brother stuttered, Yuma, Asia whimpered, Rainier-sama. Issei turned to Asia, then back to the fallen angel and asked, Rainier? Is that your real name? Without even acknowledging the question, Rainier said, Asia, if you do not want either one of these other two harmed, come with me. My brother then stepped forward and activated his sacred gear and said, like hell she will. Seeing his twice critical Rainier, he scoffed and said, I was told that you had a powerful sacred gear and to get rid of you right away by the higher-ups. It turns out they vastly overestimated you. At your level, a twice critical won't even get you near freed, let alone me. Sweating profusely, he turns to Asia and me and yells, run! Get away as quickly as possible and I'll hold her off. Asia replied to him, but I couldn't understand it. It was probably the same reply I had given, which was, we can't abandon you, I'm staying. Issei turned and charged forward, and Rainier created a spear that was red-collared and shaped like a thorn, just like last time. But before my brother could get close, she threw it, and it pierced his stomach, and he fell. We rushed to his side as the spear vanished. Asia immediately began to heal him, while I felt terrified while trying to keep him conscious. He managed to stagger back to his feet when Rainier created another spear. Asia again yelled at her, and what I can only assume as surrender by Rainier grinned and threw her spear at Issei again, who was still trying to get up. I panicked. I wasn't sure what I should do, so I did the only thing I thought I could. I stepped between my brother and the spear and held my hands up in front of me. Suddenly, a light burst from my own hands, and when her spear collided with that light, it shattered. The spear was destroyed, nullifying all the effects it had. Everybody stood there in shock and awe. No one was sure what had happened. Then I see new look on the fallen angel Rainier's face as she spread her wings and took to the air, this time speaking to me so I could understand. She said, originally my job was to destroy your brother to prevent him from becoming a threat to us with his sacred gear. But from what I have just witnessed, his sacred gear is quite weak. However, it all makes sense now on how the higher-ups made such a mistake. Simply, the one we were probably looking for was you all along. I have changed my mind. Not only will I be taking Asia back with me, but I will be taking you as well. She threw another spear, and to repeat what I just did, I raised my hands. Once again, a blue light appeared in the palm of my hand, spreading out in a barrier that shattered her spear. However, before I could celebrate, or anything for that matter, she had made yet another spear to enter close combat. She swung this spear vertically at me, which, thanks to my kendo experience, I was able to avoid barely. My brother then darted forward from my side just to be knocked down by the fallen angel before she took to the sky again. She laughed and said, to think this girl is just a human, and has just awakened her sacred gear and is stronger than you, a devil who has been training with your sacred gear. It is completely pathetic. She then raised her hand above her head and created a large spear, one that he could only describe as being as big as a tree, as she drew it back. Asia again stepped forward, shielding us from the fallen angel. This time, whatever the girl said to Rainier caused her to lower her spear and let it fade. The girl stepped forward as Rainier descended, wrapping her wings around both of them. They began to disappear into a magic circle. After being battered and bruised, Issei managed to carry himself back to the Occult Research Club and let himself into the clubroom. As he opened the door, he collapsed on the floor, prompting Rias and Aquino to rush to his side. The girls kept asking about his physical condition. It was only after they started talking that they realized the most damage he suffered was emotional. I explained to them how we ran into Asia in town, how Rainier showed up, beat the three of us down, and kidnapped the girl. Issei then begged for their help. Rias strongly opposed it. I even tried to tell her that we needed to assist her, only to be told that I wasn't involved. She went on to explain that invading the church would lead to a war in the underworld, and that it was not worth the risk. It was after Issei said, Rainier said she might die during this ritual. I paused and replied to him, wait, what ritual? Issei then remembered the language barrier and explained to me that Rainier wanted Asia for a ritual, and Asia was willing to go to save the two of us, regardless of the danger to her life. While interested in the ritual, Rias was quite confused about what Issei could have meant. However, that piece of information also caught Aquino's interest, which caused her to pull Rias aside and whisper something to her. Rias then turned to the group and said, listen up. Something has come up and Aquino and I have to step out for a bit. Issei hollered, but President, we're not done talking. She stepped up to Issei, and Rias said, before I go, let me tell you something, Issei. I know you don't think much of your twice critical since it is very common. But don't look down on the fact that you were my pawn. Pawns are not weak. They possess a special ability none of the other pieces have. Issei, confused, replied, really? Rias continued, yes, it's called promotion. Just like real chess pawns can transform into any piece besides the king once they travel into the deepest part of the opponent's domain. She demonstrated this by placing a pawn piece on the opposite side of the chessboard nearby. Issei, being confused and embarrassed by Rias being so close to him, stuttered, with this, I could become as strong as Aquino? Rias replied, in theory yes, but you have to be within an enemy's territory for it to work. Issei, in turn, questioned, what does that mean? It means being in the home base of the enemy territory. For us, a church might be the best example of enemy territory. Rias hinted. While this hint went over Issei's head, Kiba and Kaneko caught on right away. As Rias was about to leave, she turned back and said, one more thing. Sacred gears are powered by the strength of your heart. The stronger your feelings are, the more the sacred gear responds, and the stronger it will become. After the president and vice president left, Issei got up and started to the door. Kiba got up behind him and said, "If you go, you will die." Issei stopped and said, "If no one else will do it, I will." Kiba replied, shocking Issei. "We will go with you," placing his knight piece on the board next to the pawn. With Kaneko doing the same with the rook piece, Kiba followed up, stating, "If Master Rias did not want us to go, she would have sealed you away into this room, tied you up, or done whatever means necessary to prevent you from going." The three of them started toward the door, and I was about to follow, but Kiba stopped, turned to me, and said, "Sorry Kizara-san, this is the devil's work, it would be too dangerous to take you with us." I replied, "Hold on, Asia's my friend too, and I want to help her. Plus, in the conflict just now, I got a power too." Kiba then said sorry and walked out. I rushed after them and hit a force field in the doorway. I hit it, and tried to use my power to break it, but it wouldn't manifest like it did at the park. I looked at my hands and asked why isn't it working, and started hitting the barrier again and again as the words Kiba said echoed in my mind. "If Master Rias did not want us to go, she would have sealed you away into this room, tied you up, or done whatever means necessary to prevent you from going." After Kiba, Kaneko, and Issei left, Kizara continued to beat on the barrier with her fist and cried out again, "Wait, stop, and take me with you. Please! Aniki, don't leave me behind." Her voice was full of anxiety. After they were out of sight, she felt helpless, but she then pushed it from her mind and got up and looked around the room. On the opposite side of the room was another door leading to an adjacent room, so she ran over to it and turned the knob, only to find it locked. She tried kicking it open, but it was stopped by the same barrier as the first door. She whines with frustration and worry as she shakes the knob. "Don't tell me all the exits are like this?" As she runs to the window to see if it is open, to find it too is sealed by a barrier. Once again, Kiba's words echo in her mind. "If Master Rias did not want us to go, she would have sealed you away into this room, tied you up, or done whatever means necessary to prevent you from going." As she hung her head and wiped the tears from her eyes, she looked at her hands, thinking back to what happened when Rainier attacked them. She bit her lips and cursed, "Why can't I use that power again?" The fight from earlier replayed in her mind again, showing how Issei had tried to fight but was injured. Then back to when Rainier nearly killed him on that date. She screamed in protest and told herself, "I absolutely cannot give up." She dashes back to the door and kicks the barrier, strikes it with her fist, then throws a chair against it to no avail. She then pulled out her cell phone to see that it had no service, meaning she couldn't call her family or friends. She tried calling the police, but she found that it didn't work either. Given that they had cut off all means of communication, she rushed over to attempt to use the magic circle and observation portal, but neither worked, or she didn't know how to use them. It is then that the despair started to set in. She knelt in front of the doorway again and sobbed between the tears. She cried, "Don't get hurt, Onaikan." She sniffed, "Please save Asia." It's then that her hand started to glow again. She looked up from her tears and stared at it for a moment, wondering how the power worked and how to control it. That's when Rias' last words for Issei as she left echoed in her mind. "One more thing, sacred gears are powered by the strength of your heart. The stronger your feelings are, the more the sacred gear responds, and the stronger it will become." Kizara, finding her resolve again, forced herself to stand up and put all her thoughts and emotions to the idea of saving Issei and Asia. When she did, the sputtering blue aura released fully, and a fingerless glove manifested on her right hand. With that hand, she reached out and touched the barrier, which shattered as if it were made of air. Now free, Kizara rushed out of the building and down the path to the main school campus to leave. However, as soon as she left the school grounds, she ran into a short and petite girl with blonde twintails and a gothic Lolita dress. Recognizing the girl, she stopped and spoke her name as the girl stared her down with a grin. "Hibikizan, was it? Are you really a friend of Raynar's?" She gives a big, cheerful smile, her twintails bouncing with the movement. "Hee, nice to meet you, Kizarakan." Her voice is high-pitched and energetic. "Yes, I'm Middlet, Rainier Onisima's most trusted subordinate," she says with a curtsy, her black dress fluttering slightly. "And you are Rainier's target, if I'm not mistaken?" Her eyes sparkle with mischief. "Don't try to run away, I'm here to take you back to Rainier." Her blue eyes seem to gleam with excitement. "We can't let you escape, after all," Her voice takes on a teasing tone. You're not going to make me chase you around, are you? That would be so boring. As her gaze drifts to Kizara's face, her expression is playful but gremlin-like. Kizara steadies her position to run or fight as needed and replies with conviction, I have no intention of becoming Rainer's object, so forget taking me with you. She stares Middle down before adding, step aside, I need to go help my brother and my friend. Middle lets out a high-pitched giggle, her eyes glinting with amusement at the proclamation. Oh, how cute! You think you can just tell me to step aside? Her voice takes on a mocking tone. I'm not just anyone, you know. I'm Middle, the one who'll be taking you down. She takes a step closer, black shoes clicking on the ground. Her gaze drifts to Kizara's determined face, expression unchanging. You think you're going to help your brother and friend? Her voice drips with sarcasm. How conceited. You're not even going to be able to help yourself. Kizara lowers her posture, ready to charge or run, locking eyes with Middle as she grits her teeth, her low-tied ponytail sliding loosely to the side. Middle's twin tails bounce as she shakes her head back and forth. I'm not going to let you go anywhere near them. Now let's get one thing straight, you're coming with me. Her voice again takes on a playful, teasing tone. And if you resist, well, that would just make things more interesting, wouldn't it? As her eyes sparkle with mischief, she creates a light spear in her hand. Kizara's eyes lock onto the light spear in her hand, and the memories of her brother getting stabbed rerun through her mind, and her body tells her to run away. Pushing the thought away, she squeezes her right hand with the glove into a fist. No, I'm not going with you. Now leave before Rias gets back and destroys you. Middle gives a delighted squeal, her eyes sparkling with excitement. Oh, you're so adorable when you're angry. She teases with a playful tone. And Rias, huh? Her gaze drifts thoughtfully to the side for a moment. I've certainly heard of her. She's the sister of the Satan Lucifer, and the master of that brother of yours. The revelation that Rias' brother was Lucifer himself chilled Kizara to the core. All the thoughts and suspicions rushed through her. She began to question if Rias was really an ally, either before Middle's voice snapped her out of it. Her voice adopts a mocking inflection. But let's not focus on her right now. Her eyes snap back to Kizara, glinting with amusement. You, however, are quite a different story. You're just like all the others, depending on someone else's strength to try to intimidate me. Her tone takes on a playful, teasing note. Now, let's return to the main issue. You're coming with me, and that's not negotiable. She grips the light spear tightly, raising it. So, will you come quietly, or do we need to do this the hard way? Her eyes sparkle with mischief. Aware of the difficult position she is in, Kizara dashed back onto campus, ducked behind a nearby building, and fled between them, using them as cover. Middle lets out a throaty laugh, her eyes gleaming with excitement. Oh, you think you can escape me that easily? As she chases after Kizara. I'm not that simple to shake off, you know. Her voice is laced with teasing. You'd think Rainer's target would be a bit more resourceful, but I suppose you're not as clever as I thought you'd be. She darts between the buildings, her agility and quick reflexes allowing her to keep up with Kizara's evasive maneuvers. Come now, Kizarakan, don't make me have to catch you. Her voice takes on a playful, taunting tone. It's not going to be fun if you make this too easy. She glances around, her eyes scanning the surroundings as she tries to anticipate Kizara's next move. Besides, I've got a reputation to uphold as Rainer's subordinate. Kizara ducks the next corner, and into a narrow space that her brother used to avoid the kendo club, causing Middle to lose her temporarily. Her eyes dart from Middle's direction to the nearby kendo clubroom. She grits her teeth, knowing that if she can make it there, she might be able to do something. Middle stopped as she rounded the corner, not able to see where Kizara had gone. Her eyes seemed to gleam with excitement. She wasn't going to let Kizara get away that easily. She quickly spots Kizara's hiding spot and closes in, her light spear at the ready. Ah, there you are! Her voice is triumphant. Now let's end this. As Middle slashed with her light spear, Kizara barely dodged it, thanks to her kendo training and adrenaline. She quickly runs into the kendo training hall and slams the door behind her. Looking for something she could protect herself with, Middle grins, her blue eyes sparkling with amusement. Oh, you think a little thing like a door is going to keep me out? Middle skips up to the door and tries the handle, only to find it locked. Ah, how predictable. Middle lets out a throaty chuckle. Kazarikan, you're not exactly the most creative person, are you? Middle takes a step back, her eyes scanning the area around her. But don't worry, I'll just find another way in. Middle notices a window on the side of the building, and her eyes light up with excitement. Ah, perfect. Middle dashes over to the window and flies up, her wings enabling her to scale the wall with ease. You know, Kazarikan, I've always been curious about your little kendo training. Middle's voice is laced with teasing. She swings her legs over the windowsill, her twin tails bouncing as she drops down into the training hall. Tada! Middle announces her presence, her voice dripping with sarcasm. I'm here, and I'm not leaving until I catch you. Middle looks around the training hall, her eyes scanning the room for Kazara. Now, where are you hiding, Kazarikan? Middle's voice takes on a playful, taunting tone. Come out, wherever you are. Middle sees a blue glow emerging from the corner of her eye and turns to find Kazara holding a shurnai in her right hand. On that hand, she wears a blue glowing glove, which causes the shurnai to radiate the same blue color. As they make eye contact, Kazara raises the blue glowing shurnai at Middle and says in a commanding and stern voice, Last chance, get out of my way and let me go help my friends. Middle's grin widens, her blue eyes sparkling with excitement. Oh, Kazarikan, you're so cute when you're trying to be brave. Middle takes a step back, her eyes fixed on the blue glowing shurnai. Ah, a little trick, I see. Middle's voice is laced with amusement. You think a little blue glow is going to scare me? Middle lets out a throaty chuckle. I've seen far more impressive things than a glowing glove and a shurnai. Middle's eyes narrow, her gaze piercing. But I must admit, I'm a little curious. Middle takes a step forward. What makes you think you can take me on, Kazarikan? Middle's voice drips with sarcasm. You're just a little sister, trying to protect her friends. Middle's eyes flicker to the shurnai. And that thing you're holding? Middle lets out a dismissive snort. It's just a stick. Middle takes another step forward. Now let's end this little game, shall we? Middle's voice takes on a playful, teasing tone. You can try to hit me, Kazarikan. I dare you. Knowing that Middle's underestimation of her was her best chance, Kazara dashed forward and swung with all her might. Middle, grinning, tried to block it with her light spear, but the blue glow shattered the spear, rendering it useless. The strike goes deep into her stomach, doubling her over, before Kazara's follow-up strikes her over the head, slamming it into the floor. As Middle's head bounced, Kazara fled out the door and out of sight. Middle groans, her voice muffled as she remains doubled over on the floor. She can't believe a little girl like Kazarikan took her down. Middle's face contorts in a mix of pain and annoyance as she slowly rises to her knees, her hands clutching her stomach. Ugh, that blue glow was more than just a little trick, wasn't it? Middle's eyes narrowed, her gaze fixed on the spot where Kazara had just stood. She is not happy about being outsmarted and outmaneuvered by Kazarikan. Her voice takes on a slightly pouty tone. And to think, I was just having a little fun, teasing her a bit. Her expression twists into a scowl. But Kazarikan had to go and get serious, didn't she? Middle gradually rises to her feet, her eyes scanning the area to see if Kazara is still in sight. She knows she will have to report this to Raineressima. Middle mutters under her breath, and I'm not going to be happy about that. Taking a deep breath, her gaze remains fixed on the door Kazara fled through. Middle will catch up to Kazarikan, no matter what it takes. A grin returns to her face, though it's tinged with annoyance and determination. After all, she has a reputation to uphold as Raineressima's subordinate. As Middle leaves the building, she is greeted by a young girl in a witch's uniform with messy brown braided twin tails and glasses hiding perverted yellow eyes. Middle looks her up and down with annoyance before asking, Who are you? In turn, the perverted witch grinned and responded, Just a close friend of the Haidu's. I hope you don't mind me cutting in. Middle scowled, realizing that this opponent was going to be far more trouble than Kazara was. Fine, human, don't complain later if you die. Both girls flex incredible auras at each other, and Kazara disappears, heading for the church. Part 2. Later, when the rescue team arrived at the church, Issei bursts through the door to be greeted by Fried, of all people. Fried gets up from the pew near the altar, his coat flapping from the wind created by the doors being knocked off their hinges, and hums, "Hello, reunited at long last." "Oich, I'm so emotional." Issei stopped and exclaimed with annoyance, "Great, it's the shitty priest." Fried scoffed and spoke as if spraying venom, "I'm stupid strong, so I have never fought the same devil twice before. You tarnished my record, you little shit." Before taking a deep breath and adding calmly, "You've come to save Asia Tan, yeah? She is right under this altar here." As he slaps the top of the altar, Issei freezes in astonishment before commenting, "That was forthcoming?" Kiba added, "Yeah, he is too nonchalant," drawing his sword from the scabbard. Fried laughed at their dialogue before saying, "That's 'cause you guys are gonna die right here." After that, Kaneko picks up a church pew and says, "I'm going to crush him now," then throws it at him. Fried darts back and cuts it in half, discovering Kiba behind it, and crosses swords with him, knocking him back again. Fried then drew his gun and fired at Kiba's legs and then face, but Kiba dodged them all. Kaneko then shielded Kiba and took multiple rounds that just bounced off of her rook defenses. Fried commented with a vulgar tone, "For a puny thing you are tough." Snap! In a fury of anger, Kaneko started tossing the pews left and right at Fried. Fried, on the other hand, made sport of it, even saying "ha ha 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 beta yup," and started cutting them as they came with ease. In the meantime, Kiba took the opportunity and zipped in at blinding speed, crossed blades with him again, and this time calling out Holy Eraser, activating an ability he had. His sword shifted to a black color, and it ate Fried's sword, causing him to curse, "Another gear user." Kiba replied, "Yes, this is a devil's sword that consumes light." Seeing his chance with Fried's confusion, Issei moved in and activated his twice critical boost, then promotion to rook afterward. Fried noticed this and fired his pistol at him, and he walked right through the bullets, and Fried pulled another sword out, cursing again, "Shit, this one is a pawn," and tried to cut Issei down. However, just like many times in the past with the Kendo team and at their first meeting, Issei dodged Fried's strike and slammed his fist into his chest, but this time, launching him away with an impact with much greater force thanks to the rook trait. Fried went through the wall into the next room and must have hit several items from the crashing and clanging that followed. Kiba joined Issei and looked into the darkness of the hole leading into the next room, where Issei sent Fried and commented, "Your power in rook after using your sacred gear may be higher than even Kaneko's." Issei. But his praise was short-lived after Fried staggered back out into the central area of the church. He was bleeding from the mouth, and both his weapons were broken, showing that they had taken most of the blow. He then shouted, "Don't squeal with me." He then threw a ball at the ground, and with a flash and smoke, he was gone. The three of them grouped close together with their backs to the center, so as not to be ambushed. Kaneko took a moment and looked around, then said, while pointing at the back door, "He just left out the back and is moving away from here." Issei then rushed to the altar as quickly as he could and told the others, "Let's go," and pushed the altar aside and ran down the stairs with the others close behind, smashing through the door at the bottom. Inside, they saw Rainier and well over 100 more priests. To make matters worse, she had Asia chained up to a cross. "Isa!" Issei screamed. Rainier was smiling and greeted them politely as they came in. "Welcome, devils. It's a touching reunion, but you're a bit late." Suddenly, magic circles appeared around her, and Asia's chest glowed, and Asia was screaming in pain. Asia was crying and calling for Issei from the cross, so he charged along with Kiba and Kaneko and plowed through the priest to get to the cross. They were like bowling pins and toppling before him. Issei was getting minor cuts and bruises from the priest's attacks, but he couldn't care less and used the rook attribute to push through them all. Kiba and Kaneko, on the other hand, weren't as reckless. They were making slower progress, but weren't taking damage. As the priests were finally numerous enough to slow Issei down, an orb of light came out of Asia's circle. As she approached the cross, Rainier said finally, "This is the power I have been after for years. With this, all those who mock me will no longer, for I have the last laugh." She reached out and grabbed the orb and absorbed it into her chest. It was then that Asia went silent and fell limp. Issei roared and pushed harder to get through the group. It was then that Kiba and Kaneko were at his sides, giving him support and words of motivation. "Get going, we'll handle these guys." With that, Issei was able to push through to where Asia and Rainier were. Rainier then snapped her fingers, and Asia was released so Rainier could catch her. Issei was trembling with both sadness and anger as Rainier began to mock him. Go ahead and say your final farewells if you even can. Issei clung to Asia desperately, tears running down his face. Asia! Asia! Wake up! Wake up! Please! Rainier stood over them both with an arrogant smirk on her face and said with zero remorse. Do you know what happens to someone whose sacred gear is removed? They die. As her words sank in, a rage started to build in Issei. Give it back! He shouted. Not a chance. I even had to deceive the higher-ups to do this. Do you know what that means? It means none of you are leaving here alive, Rainier explained as she turned her back on him with a cold pity. I said give it back. Issei roared this time with bestial anger. Rainier then put her hands on her hips like a pouting schoolgirl. Boo, where is the cute little boy that took me on a date the other day? Before bending over a finger on her lip, and cleavage spilling out of her leather top, Issei looked over his shoulder and made eye contact with her, his eyes emitting a rage-filled green glow. You may look like Yuma, but you're such a monster, Rainier still in her seductive pose and using her cute Yuma voice. Oh, don't be like that. We had so much fun. I was your first girlfriend, and you were nothing but an innocent little boy. Issei lowered his head, breaking eye contact. His eyes shaded by his bangs, he stuttered, "Too cared about you." Rainier uprighted herself and scoffed, switching back to her mature, sultry voice. And it showed. You took so much effort to be at my beck and call, I had to find ways to get you in trouble just to see you panic and fuss. Yuma-chan, Issei stuttered, as more emotions leaked into his voice and tears ran down his face once more. Rainier turned her back on him once more and looked up to the ceiling. Yuma was such a fitting name, since the plan was to kill you at sunset. What do you think? As he was about to reply, Asia started to stir and wake up. Issei's full attention switched back to Asia with panic. Asia, are you okay? Rainier turned her head to look over her shoulder down at the two who knelt behind her with a disgusted expression. Oh, so the little tramp is still breathing, what a shame. Rayyyne, Issei roared as his rage erupted once more throughout his body. You dare use my name so lightly, brat! She roared back as she created a spear and attempted to stab through them both. But Issei dove away and back into the sea of priests. Fortunately, Kiba and Kaneko were waiting for him and opened a path out and back upstairs. Upstairs, Issei laid her down on a pew and tried to console her in worry. You will be okay soon, Asia. You will be able to be friends with me and Kizara forever. Asia smiled up at him, and with a weak voice she cried I was happy that I had a friend even for a short while she sobs before continuing if I were to be born again. Will you become my friend once more? We are friends. That's right. I will introduce you to Motohama and Matsuda. They are a bit perverted, but both of them are good guys. And Kizara will introduce you to Murayama and Keitase. They are beautiful and kind, you will have all kinds of friends. So please, stay with me. Asia, Issei begged with desperation. Thank you were her final words, right before she passed away, her hands slipping from his grip and falling to the floor. Issei was lost in an abyss of despair. That's when he heard someone enter the church. He turned and saw Kizara standing there. She appeared exhausted from running all the way here, but more prevalent was the shock on her face. Unable to take it, Issei broke down on the spot. Kizara, sniff Asia, sniff she's. Before Issei could finish, Kizara ran over and hugged his head to calm him down. I'm sorry, Onaikin. Her words hurt, and probably even hurt her more since she wasn't able to help. But that thought was pushed away by a single voice behind them. What's this? Another gift for me, Issei-kun? Issei turned and got up to face Rainier, who was showing off a cut on her arm. Look, this is the wound I got from the sword boy downstairs. Rainier places her hand on her wound and uses Asia's sacred gear to heal it. Look! Wonderful, isn't it? With this power, even Azazel-sama and Shemaza-sama will love me. Kizara jumped up and yelled. Wait, that's Asia, power. Why does she have it? What did you do to Asia? Issei hung his head, and Rainer grinned and said, the same thing I'm going to do to you. Snap! Issei heard enough and made a step forward, cracking the wood floor under him. Ria's words echoed through his mind again. One more thing, sacred gears are powered by the strength of your heart. The stronger your feelings are, the more the sacred gear responds, and the stronger it will become. Issei roared through his never-ending tears pouring from dragonic glowing green eyes. Give Asia Biowaeowik. Dragon Booster. The gauntlet transformed in a flash from a forearm guard to covering the whole hand, including the fingers, coating them with talon-like armor. Additionally, it changed to a dark red color with a green gem, replacing its orange-like color from before. Boost! The gauntlet echoed once, and Issei took another step and charged with a punch. Heh! Did your power increase a bit? Still, it's not enough. Rainer dodged and threw a spear through his leg. Even with the rook defense, it was able to penetrate. But it wasn't enough to stop him. This won't stop me, he roared, grabbing the light spear. Boost! The gauntlet echoed a second time. Issei ripped the spear out and charged at Rainer again. And once again she dodged, but just barely, causing him to hit a massive concrete statue of a vandalized angel, shattering it and knocking the large pieces through the wall. This time, though, Rainer was concerned with what she had just seen. I am impossible. Your body isn't in a condition to move because of the damage from light. Plus, you cannot have this kind of power. You are a mere low-class devil. Issei turned back toward her, his green, ominous, glowing eyes looking through her as a heavy red aura seeped out of his body. Yeah, it hurts. It hurts. So much I want to puke, but I can't, not for Asia's sake and not of Kizara's either. Watch me, I will end this with the next blow. Boost! The gauntlet echoed a third time. That's not going to happen, Rainer shrieked as she created a huge spear the size of a tree trunk and threw it at Issei with all her might. Fly, you shitty angel, Issei uttered calmly and coldly before his gauntlet burst with energy, igniting his power even more. Explosion! The gauntlet echoed as it drastically increased his power. Large bat wings burst from his back, and Issei charged and smashed through the massive spear and toward Rainer, who was turning in the air to flee in terror. Screaming as she fled, his power, it's above mid-class, it's even pushing into the high class. A twice critical can't possibly do that. Before she could escape, Issei caught her by the arm and punched her in the face as hard as he could and sent her flying from the back of the church through the cross and stained glass above the altar and toward the full moon, and watched her drop to the ground outside. After Issei defeated Rainer, he staggered back over to where Kizara and Asia were, his eyes blurring, nausea turning his stomach, and was about to fall when Kiba appeared and gave him his shoulder. You're late, lady killer, Issei joked as he put his weight on him. That's because the president said to let you handle it, Kiba said with a smile, carrying him over to where the girls are. She did? Issei said in astonishment. Before he could say more, another voice cut in. I did. They all turned to see Rias standing next to the altar. I knew you could beat her, so why bother interfering? Rias said as she approached them, her red hair floating in the breeze as she walked. At this time, Kaneko walked in the back, dragging Rainer. Oh good. She's here. Akino, mind waking her up for me? Rias said with a smile as she stopped next to where Kaneko tossed her. Yes, President. Splash. Akino dosed Rainer with water via magic. Rainer bolted upright with a gasp for air, to be greeted by Rias. How are you doing, fallen angel Rainer? The daughter of the Gremory clan. Rainer stuttered in fear, beneath Rias' red glowing stare. Hello, my name is Rias Gremory, and yes, I'm the next heir of the House of Gremory. She responded with a smile that expressed both her class and anger. Why you can't do this? It will start a war. Rainer stuttered, retreating from Rias, who scoffed at her bluff. Don't give me that, I've met with your allies and they fessed up everything. Rias then tossed a handful of feathers at Rainer, who sat there in shock and terror. Issei was confused as he watched the proud and arrogant Rainer cower before his master, so he asked, Rias was able to beat multiple angels as strong as her? Kiba replied to him, yes, Rias is hailed as a genius in the underworld and was even given the moniker the Crimson Ruin Princess. As they explained that Rias herself was busy staring at Issei, or more specifically, his arm, she then pushed away her surprise and smiled, turning back to Rainer. Fallen angel Rainier. This boy, hired to issei's sacred gear, isn't a regular twice critical. That's why you lost. Her malice, she had been showering the angel with, now completely dissipated. Huh! That was all Rainier could get out. The confusion of what she had just heard had pushed all the fear she had aside until Rias went on to elaborate, to Rainier's worst nightmare. Yes, his is the sacred gear known to double his power every 10 seconds, and is capable of slaying even the Satans and gods. One of the 13 Longinus, the Red Dragon Emperor's Gauntlet, or as it is more commonly known as the boosted gear. This information meant nothing to Kizara, but she could tell from the doom on Rainier's face that it was something to be feared. Rainier then looked at Kizara and Issei and back at Kizara again. She then grabbed her head with both hands. How, HOW, is the boosted gear in possession of that boy, and how can there be another sacred gear just as powerful born to the same family? This time, everyone was staring at Kizara, who was shocked, confused, and at a loss. The one who broke the ice was Rias with a question. You have a sacred gear as well, Kizara-chan? I don't know, 3 just know when I focus my will into my hand, I create this light. She demonstrated by creating a ball of light in her palm with a blue fingerless glove on it. I'm not sure how it works, but I was about to stop her attack looking at Rainier with it before Akino chimed in, that's surprising. Have you used it since then? Kizara looked down, averting her eyes, the news she had heard about Rias still in the back of her mind. Yes, it took some time, but when Aniki and they left, they sealed me in the clubroom, and I had to use it to get out and catch up to them. Surprised, Rias interrupted, hold on, you destroyed the clubroom barrier with that? Why's? Kizara stuttered in response to Rias' quick inquiry. Rias placed her hand under her chin in thought. Akino then asked her. That barrier was created by Lord Asmodeus using his power of absolute defense trait from the Glaciolabalis clan, right? Yes, it was. Perhaps when we next speak to Lord Beelzebub, he may tell us about this. Anyway, we have another task to complete for now. Akino, if you would? Rias requested as she pushed the thoughts into the back of her mind. Akino appeared to be very upset with what she was about to do, but stepped forward and created a magic circle, creating panic in Rainier's eyes, who was still on the floor. Wait. Stop. That magic, it can't be you are. Before Rainier could finish her sentence, Akino fired a beam of light through Rainier's chest. And while it caused her pain, it didn't appear to harm Rainier. When Akino pulled back, the light beam vanished, and a green orb of light appeared from Rainier. Rias took it and placed it in Asia's chest. The whole time, Issei was watching while sobbing. After completing this, Rias turned back to the sobbing Rainier and said, Now then, I will have you disappear, fallen angel-san. That healing power is for Azazel-sama and Shemazu-sama. Please, I need it. Rainier groveled before them, tears flowing down her cheeks as Rias approached. As Rias stopped before the angel, she noted in retort. To live your life for love is beautiful. But you are too tainted with dirt. You have no elegance. And I don't allow that. Shaken, Rainier turns to Issei. Ice-kun. Please save me. This devil is trying to kill me. I love you. I love you so much. That's why, let's defeat this devil together. Issei was shocked and dumbfounded. He shook off Kiba and took a step forward, and another. Akino started to move, likely to stop Issei, but Rias motioned her to stop. He stopped next to Rias and stared at Rainier in sorrow. He finally spoke up to her after a moment. Yuma-chan. Yes? Rainier shouted as she brightened up. Yuma-chan is dead. I killed her here in this church. You are not her anymore. Do not bring her before me again, or I will reduce you to dust myself. Issei pointed his fist at Rainier while speaking, releasing a burst of energy and killing intent burning from his green glowing eyes. She hastily forced herself to crawl backwards on all fours, and when she hit the wall, she urinated on the floor under herself from the fear. After he lowered his arm, he took a deep breath and finished. Get the hell out of here. I never want to see you again. If you dare approach me, Asia, Kizara, or any of my friends, not even your lords Azazel and Shemhaza, or even ING God will stop me from getting to you. Rainer's eyes tripled in size, and she scrambled to her feet and out of one of the many holes in the wall from the battle and flew as fast as her wings would carry her to the horizon. After she left, Rias said to Issei, "You know this might cause trouble in the future, right?" "Yes," he said, his head down, facing the floor. "Not only will this impede your progress as a devil but mine as well, you realize that, right?" She added with a disappointment that was heavy enough to hurt. "Yes," he said as the tears rolled down his face. "So what do you suggest we do if someone questions us or she creates another incident like this one?" She said calmly this time, like a mother scolding a child. "I'll handle it no matter what occurs from now on. I will become the strongest pawn in the underworld. I will become a king! And I will protect all those I care about. Never again will a friend of mine die. Issei vows with all his emotion and will." Rias paused of a moment and smiled, then slapped Issei on the praising him with, "Good boy," which between the surprise, his fatigue, and injuries caused him to collapse on the floor. Kizara quickly ran over and helped him up as Rias and Aquino prepared a ritual. Carefully, they moved Asia to the floor, and Rias took out a red bishop chess piece from her skirt pocket. Immediately, everyone knew what it was. "An evil piece?" asked both Issei and Kizara. "Yes, I'm going to revive this sister as my bishop." Rias smiled. Just like the day Kizara saw her revive Issei, Rias reincarnated Asia Argento. "I order, in my name, Rias Gremeriu, Asia Argento. I resurrect you back to this soil as my servant, and have you reborn as a devil. You, my bishop, be delighted with your new life." A moment later Asia awoke. She sat up and looked around, her eyes stopping on the two familiar faces in the room, Issei and Kizara. She nervously asked, "Issei-san, Kizara-san, what is going on? What happened?" At this point, Kizara wasn't even shocked that she could understand her now. She just rushed over with Issei limping behind, and hugged her. "Huh? Kizara-san, what's wrong? What's wrong?" Asia questioned with worry. Kizara relaxed and leaned back so Asia could see her, and she smiled as big as she could, saying, "Welcome back, Asia." It took Asia a moment to realize she could understand Kizara and why that is, but she pushed that aside, and while tearing up, she smiled back and said, "I'm back, Kizara-san. Thanks for listening to my video. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe and comment below your favorite part. Sayonara, see you in the next video."